You see, in the Bible, there were two persons which were taken into the heavens. The first one in the Old Testament was Enoch. I was talking about Enoch 3 days ago. That was before the great flood. And the second one is this one, Elijah. The prophet Elijah was taken into the heaven with a flying chariot also. Of course, it's all mythology. It was not an angel, it was extraterrestrials. And these angels had great influence to mankind at that time. But what is very interesting for me all the time, it's not only in the Bible. You find the same story elsewhere, but we Christians don't know the text from elsewhere. So, you see, in the second book of the Kings, chapter 19, verse 35, you can read that an angel from heaven killed in a few minutes 185,000 Assyrians. No battle, no fight, no men against men, simply 185 people killed. What sort of an angel is this? What has these Assyrians done against the Lord? Or you remember maybe Jacob, the biblical Jacob. He saw a stairway to heaven. But as I said, all these stories you just do not only find in the Bible, you find it elsewhere too. For example, in Egypt, you have always this winged sun disk. And in reality, it was not a sun disk, it was simply a chariot. On a temple wall in Edfu, it's written that the Pharaoh was attacked by his enemies. But the Pharaoh had a good friend, his God up there, so-called God. Because the Pharaoh delivered to the so-called God gold and diamonds. Now he was surrounded by enemies. So the Pharaoh asked for help to his God up there. And the winged sun disk flew down. And within a few minutes, like in the Bible, more than 100,000 enemies were dead. Fantastic. Also, this is shown in many pictures here. Ahura Azura Mazda, which fights from the sky. Now, how can we prove that extraterrestrials were here thousands of years ago? And there are ways to prove it, definitely, even if we do not have an extraterrestrial object. I have to tell you now a story which takes a little time, but the logic in itself will come to the clues we have it to do with extraterrestrial. If you go to Thailand, as tourists, you go to Thailand, Bangkok, the main city, take your time to visit the old King's Palace. Not the new King's Palace, the old King's Palace. And there in a garden, you have about 15 of these pictures. Pictures of the size like of this screen. And these pictures show a fight from the Ramayana. Ramayana is an old Indian and Thailand book. And there you see some flying chariots. You see a war. They were fighting with weapons. We saw laser or ray weapons. So this is mythology shown in form of pictures. Still alive today in Thailand. Now, everyone knows what the Sphinx is. The Sphinx is a mixed creature. Has the head of the Pharaoh and the body of a lion. Now, we all know the Sphinx before the Great Pyramid in Egypt. That Sphinx was for some decades not to see. It was covered completely with sand. Even the Greek historian Herodotus, who was in Egypt 450 BC, he was standing before the Great Pyramid, but he did not see the Sphinx. The Sphinx was not there in his time. It was covered. Now, there is not only one Sphinx, I mean the head of the pharaoh with the body of a lion. When you go on the Nile, from Cairo up to Aswan, you find many, many temples. And in each and every of these temples, you find some Sphinx. Now the plural of Sphinx is not sphinxes, sphinxes. And they are all completely different. It's not only the head of the pharaoh and the body of a lion. It's complete other mixtures. Sphinx are mixed creatures. On the river Nile, from the Great Pyramid up to Luxor, every temple has its sphinx. And there are sphinxes of different kinds. There exist mixtures of animals of all kinds. In Luxor are two temples, the Luxor temple and the Karnak temple. Between these two temples is a distance of 3.8 kilometers, quite a distance. And on this road between the two temples, in ancient time, there were one sphinx next to the other, hundreds of it. In the meantime, most of them are crashed down, destroyed. But in ancient time, 3.8 kilometers on a road, every 10 meters, one sphinx. This now is the step pyramid of Saqqara. According to the Egyptologists, it should be the oldest pyramid in Egypt. Day after day, thousands of tourists are looking out in the desert, and no one knows the real mystery of Saqqara. Here. Under the ground are gigantic tunnels, some of them 700 meters long and large enough to drive in by car. One of these tunnels, in the meantime, are open for tourism. It's called the Serapeum. You see how large it is? You really can drive in with the car. And on the right and on the left are niches. Like the tunnels, the niches are cut out of the rock. And inside the niches, huge sarcophaguses. The lower part of the sarcophagus weighs up to 60 tons, and the lid alone 10 to 20 tons. The material of these sarcophaguses consists of Aswan granite. Aswan granite is the hardest granite in Egypt. And Aswan is about 1,000 kilometers away from here. So you have to imagine, oh yes, good. In the past, some group of workers took out granite out of the rock. Hard to do. They transported it 1,000 kilometers down the Nile. 1,000 kilometers. In ancient times, there were three cataracts. Today, was sind nein, Schleusen. Wissen wir mal. Georgie, bist du auch da? Hä? No. Georgie, bist du da? Ja. Was heißt der Schleuse? Dams. Okay, gut. Muss man nicht wissen. Was ist das? Ah. Heißt lange, das ist gut so. Now to come to the story. Around 150 years ago, the French archaeologist Auguste Mariette was here in Saqqara. Not in the underground tunnels, but above, on the desert sand. Later on, he wrote, he was in the bad mood, was a little bit hungry, and stumbled over a stone. As he pulled himself up to his feet, he saw a word engraved on the stone. The word said, Apis. Auguste Mariette, the Frenchman, was electrified because Apis was the sacred bull in ancient Egypt. Mariette knew that this Apis bull once existed, but archaeologists had never found a mummy of it. There were all sorts of bulls in ancient Egypt, ordinary bulls, but the Apis bull was completely different. He was not natural born, he was created directly by the gods. There was no sexual relationship between two Apis. He was produced by the god. Only the priests were permitted to touch him. The chronicles even wrote that Apis was a monster. He often caused smaller temples to collapse. He destroyed cornfields, killed old men and infants, and the people were frightened. But nobody was allowed to harm or even to kill the Apis bull. He was holy, like today's cows in India. And now August Mariet stands before a stone with the inscription Apis. August Mariet thought, here somewhere in the proximity I probably find mummies of this sacred bull for the first time. By the way, August Mariet in his time didn't proceed so carefully in his works as archaeologists do today. Specialists proceed very delightfully with spatula and brushes. August Mariet in his time sank dynamite poles into the ground again and again. Then he blew them up and holes were blown out. And in such a bang, he slipped down in person into a hole. As he got torches handed, as the dust from the explosion dispersed, he stood in front of this sarcophagus. Show the sarcophagus, die blöde Löhl. Ja, das ist nicht der. Kann noch einen zum Beispiel, oder der. Die Kante da hinten. Die schöne Kante. Okay. Ja, aber gesagt, natürlich Dinge so. So he stood in front of this. August Mariet and his helpers took crowbars. The men climbed on stage. The first lid were lifted off, and August Mariet let the scream out. His breath had almost burned his lungs. Gasping for breath, the men went up to the surface, to the desert, recovered themselves for 20 minutes. Then they went down again with wet clothes around their faces. What happened? These sarcophags were filled up to the lid with bitumen. Bitumen is natural asphalt. And it was the smell of the bitumen which almost burned the lung of August Mariet. 3 days later, he went down again. The workers took out the stinky mass of bitumen and brought it up to the desert. Inside the bitumen, they found thousands and thousands of small, broken bones of different animals. In every sarcophagus, the same picture: broken, splittered bones of all kinds of beasts, but no mummy of the sacred Apis bull. And here begins the mystery. Gaan we weiter, langsam Mumie zeigen. In Egypt, every living creature was mummified. Not only the human body, not only the kings. The reason for this mummification was their belief in reincarnation. We nowadays, we have a body and the consciousness and the so-called soul. The ancient Egyptians had something similar, which they called the body, the Ka, and the Ba. They believed that reincarnation is only possible when the body and the whole body is preserved. Therefore, it was impossible in ancient Egypt to destroy a body. They mummified dogs, dogs, fishes, apes, spiders, cats, even small animals like scorpion. Every living creature in ancient Egypt was mummified. Everyone. And here, under the ground of Saqqara, are the mummies of 200,000 crocodiles. Not 2,000, 200,000 crocodiles in these tunnels under Saqqara. thousands of apes, and unbelievable, 4 million of mummified birds. Not 4,000, 4 millions of mummified birds. Just imagine, every bird prepared in his own oil, his own linen, his own canopy. Sagen wir eine. Ja, these are some canopies. That's nice. 4 million times. Why? Why have they done this terrible work to mummify 200,000 crocodiles? Apes, things, 4 million. Why? Because they believe in reincarnation. And to be reincarnated, the body had to be preserved. But just before I said, in the gigantic sarcophaguses which Auguste Mariette found, there were thousands of broken bones. Absolutely impossible with the tradition of mummification, because the whole body had to be preserved. To break some bones would be a disaster, a sin. Please remember, the material of these sarcophaguses consists of granite from Aswan. Aswan is 1,000 kilometers away from Saqqara. In Aswan, some work troopers cut out the hardest granite that exists in ancient Egypt, the Aswan granite, out of the rock. The raw material had to be polished. Look at the picture of the sarcophaguses. Between Aswan and Saqqara, there were the 3 cataracts on the Nile. That means the heavyweights had to get off the ships and to be transported a few kilometers on the land, had to be reloaded to the ships or rafts again, and then the whole thing 3 times. And here in Saqqara, work troops cut out underground tunnels. They make the niches right and left cut out of the rock. Somehow they managed to move the heavy sarcophaguses into the tunnels and the niches. They made the final polish. And then, for what? For what purpose? Just for broken bones? Which was against their religion of mummification. They should mummify the whole body, not broken bones. So, to break bones doesn't make any sense in ancient Egypt. Something is completely wrong here. How could we solve this mystery? Many of the ancient writers, like Diodor from Sicily, Plutarch, or the father of history, Herodotus, wrote that long time ago, the gods created mixed creatures. The Egyptian historian Manetho even describes some of these monsters. He wrote that the gods made, sagen wir mal, humans with wings. See here? All nonsense. Why then we find their pictures in different Near East museums? Humans with wings. In archaeology, they call them winged geniuses. Manetho writes of dogs with the head of humans. All garbage, but their pictures exist. Go to the British Museum or to the museums in Turkey or Baghdad. You will find mixed creatures in the craziest combinations. Remember the centaur from the Greek mythology. You know, half horse, half human. Or the Minotaurus from Crete, a bull with the head of a human, a mixture between man. And we always thought these sculptures and pictures were simply fantasies of our forefathers. But Manetho and other old historians wrote these mixed creatures did exist in reality. And we have some good pictures of it. Sagen wir mal einen. Da gehen wir weiter. Look here, this is come from the British Museum. It's called the Stone of Salamazar II. There you see an elephant in the normal size. And then, what are these figures here? They are held on chains. Mixed creature. They were alive. Seen from the eyes of evolution, mixed creatures are impossible. Evolution does not produce mixed creatures between a horse and a man. The chromosomes of the creatures are completely different. So if in reality mixed creatures existed once in the deep past, they must have come from an artificial mutation. Our today's genetics could easily produce mixed creatures, so-called chimeras. You just have to change the DNA code and plant it into the cell of another animal. Of course, nobody does this. It is ethically forbidden, but theoretically possible. Think of Jurassic Park. For what reasons should someone create mixed creatures? What's the sense of it? Come on, the beginning, once there was a gigantic spaceship, a mother spaceship surrounding our Earth. I know this from the old literature for sure. From the mother spaceship, smaller vehicles have come down to our planet. And out of these smaller vehicles, the so-called gods, in ancient Egypt, they call these smaller vehicles the winged sun disk. In India, the Vimanas, or Ezekiel calls it the splendorness of the highest. And out of these space shuttle-like things, the extraterrestrials come down. Why should they create mixed creatures? They come from a mother spaceship, and of course they were on the way traveling for hundreds and hundreds of years. They know different planets. There are planets which are bigger than our planet Earth. That means the gravity is stronger. You need more muscles. Or there are planets which are maybe smaller, or planets which are a little closer to the sun, it's a little hotter than here, or a little far away. So you need different creatures. So they see on Earth, these extraterrestrials, they see on Earth, for example, a crocodile. And they have the impression this crocodile had a skin which is heat resistance. Then they see a lion, and they see how a lion attacks an animal, and what sort of muscles and teeth does this animal has. So they say to themselves, why do not mix the heat-resistant skin of one animal with the muscles of another animal? Why should they do this? Because they use this sort of animal on another planet, where it's hotter or cooler, or where the gravity is stronger or less. That's the reason to create mixed creatures. Finally, they disappeared again, the so-called gods from our planet. Of course, they do not take mixed creatures with them on board. All what they do, they use a little portion of DNA in their spaceship, that's all. And with the DNA of the mixed creature, they create on another world other animals again. That's the purpose of it. Now imagine these gods have left the planet. But on Earth, these mixed creatures are still there. The humans are afraid of it. They are not allowed to kill it, to touch it. So they wait until these mixed creatures die of a natural way. Then they construct underground tunnels, bring the hardest granite from Aswan, break the bones of the monsters, put them into the gigantic sarcophaguses, cover it all with liquid bitumen, and close it all with the 20 to 40 ton lid. So all this in Saqqara, the subterranean tunnels with these gigantic sarcophaguses, had nothing to do with mummification. It had nothing to do with the resurrection of the body. It was exactly the contrary, a prison for eternity. These creatures should never return again to Earth. Now you see, it's very easy to prove this. It's not just a speculation. Our genetics today, they are brilliant. All what they need is a little piece of a bone, just a piece like this. They make a genetic analysis, and they will find out that this mixed creature was alive. It has DNA from different animals. Now we know, in ancient Egypt, the Egyptians, Their society were not so sophisticated that they used genetics. So if we have a mixed creature, we have to prove that extraterrestrials were here, because the humans could not create mixed creature. So it must have been extraterrestrial. So we don't even need an artifact from extraterrestrials. We can prove their visit by the DNA of the mixed creature. And this happened, by the way. I know of some genetics who knows, definitely, these are mixed creature. I say, why don't you go to public? We are not allowed to go to public. There's like this UFO stuff, Roswell or whatever. There are persons who know exactly what happened, but they are not allowed officially to go to public. So the genetics are not allowed to go to public with all these things. But these mixed creatures did exist. Other mystery in Egypt, sag mal, is this thing here. You find this object in Egypt practically in every form. It could be small like this, it could be big of 2 meters. You find it in stone, chiseled in stone. You find it in form of wood. Officially, this object is called a Djed pillar. But what is a Djed pillar? No one has any idea. In the archaeological literature, I read all kind of nonsense about the Djed pillar, including that this is a penis. My God, I don't want to have such a penis here. So, nobody knows what it is. Amavita. Some say it's a symbol of the god Ptah. We come closer to it. Abydos is so good. This is the temple of Abydos. Abydos is on the Nile like all the temple. By the way, when you are a tourist in Egypt, try to go to Abydos. This is one of the only temples where all the old the paintings and chiselings are still there in full kaula. Fantastic. When you are in the temple of Abydos, you see a gigantic a gigantic Djed pillar, bigger than the 2 persons. One person is the goddess of Isis, the other person is the pharaoh. So the goddess of Isis, from the sky, from the universe, makes a present to the pharaoh, and the present is a Djed pillar. So it must have been something important. Otherwise, not the goddess would give it to the pharaoh on earth. Something technological. We just don't know what it is. This temple of Abydos was constructed by Sethos I. That was about 1300 BC. And when you are, as a tourist, in the temple of Sethos and you have seen this Djed pillar, I suggest just go out of the temple in the backside, in the backyard of the temple. And then you stand before these gigantic granite monolites here. They are down in a hole. Officially, they are called the Osirion. Why? What's the Osirion? You know, Osiris was the oldest god in ancient Egypt. Osiris is the same with what Orion is, the star. Even in hieroglyphic writing, if you have the word Osiris, it's the same as Orion. You can absolutely mix it. So, Osiris was a helpful god. He was a teacher of the humans, and the humans loved Osiris. But he had a brother. His brother was Seth, and Seth was jealous for Osiris because Seth was not loved by the humans. So the mythology says that Seth killed his brother Osiris, and he cut the body of Osiris in several parts, and the head of the body of Osiris was buried here. That's why this place is called Osirion. Of course, they have never found the head of the body. But now, as I said 2 days ago concerning the pyramid, every technology has an evolution. Our forefathers once started to learn that you can have a spear in their hands, so you can go on distance for the wild animals. Later they invited the bow, etc. That they learned that there are different stones. Some of them are hard, some of them are soft. You can cut the stone, you can polish it. It's all a question of evolution of technology. They learned how do you transport the bones on wooden rollers and with ropes and so on. It's all a question of evolution. Jetzt gaan we so go back to this, yes. Now if you see in these blocks here, this is a high evolution of technology because it fits perfect. You see, things like, ja, man sieht einfach nicht, der Blödsinn kann natürlich auch nicht, das ist doch ein ewiger Scheiß. Das geht nicht. Hä? Das ist kein Ersatz da. Nein, aber ich hätte in dem Schächtel 2 Batterien, wenn es an denen liegt. Wait a second. Can we go back to, you see this here? Ich muss das vorne. This here, you see this? This is advanced technology. It has to fit in perfectly. Some of these monolites here weigh up to 25 tons. They come from Aswan. Aswan is about 400 kilometers away from here. That means someone must have cut out the granite, like before in the tunnels. They must have transported it here on the ships. They must have made the bottom perfect with stones. They must have had the cranes to transport these things and the technology that it fits perfectly. That means this is high technology. But Sethos, the constructor of the temple, was 1300 BC. This part, the Assyrian, is older than Sethos. It existed before Sethos because Sethos' temple is built upon these ruins here. So this is the older part. So the technology of evolution is upside down. You see, Sethos constructed his temples with small stones. So they start in ancient times with the largest block. It should be the other way around. They should start with small stones, put one next to the other. And maybe then the evolution of technology, they learn how to transport and to cut big stone. Here it's the opposite. The biggest stone are down, and later the smaller stones. So the evolution of technology is upside down. Something is wrong. And this is older than Sethos, this Assyrian. A Swiss archaeologist who was working here for a year, he says, the Osiris in Abydos is the most mysterious place in whole Egypt. We don't know how old it is, but it shows a perfect technology. Okay, jetzt gaan we naar de Djed-pijler. Gaan we naar de nächste. Bring the nächste. This is Dendera. The temple we saw before, Abydos, is on the Nile. Just a few kilometers down is this temple. They are all, more or less, all on the Nile. The temple of Dendera is theoretically young. It dates from about 300 BC. But this temple is located on a base, on a ground. And on this ground were before 3 other temples. So the ground is about 2,000–3,000 years old. Also, today's temple is young. Das ist wirklich ein Scheiß, weil ich sehe einfach nicht. Das ist Blödsinn, das System. Und die blöden Lichter werden da, aber ich weiß nicht, wo wir sind. Jetzt sehen wir jetzt die Decke.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you see on the ceiling of the temple of Dendera, you see the ships of the gods between the stars. And not just the barks or the ships on the Nile. Between the stars. Jetzt da nicht, siehst du etwas, oder? Ah, okay, da sehe ich gleich etwas. Okay. Now, I said, the ground is 2,000 years older than the temple. And if you go down in a hall, today it's open for the tourists, you just have to pay a little backshish. You come into a small room, only large enough for one person. And the walls, right and left, are covered with hieroglyphs. And then on one wall, you see this picture. And again, the Djed pillar. Der Scheiß geht einfach nicht, das ist ein Kontakt. Das ist bei allen in der Blase, das ist der gleiche Quatsch, das geht einfach nicht. Ja. Kannst du nicht machen. A Djed pillar. In official archaeology, they say that this is the womb of the mother goddess who gave birth to Osiris. But it could be a technical stuff. With this Djed pillar, it could be a sign of electricity. It could be something like an electrical lamp. We have reconstructed this thing. I just show you. Bring me das nächste. So, in Egypt and also near Baghdad, some of these strange objects were found. In the beginning, they thought, well, it has to do something with a vase, you know, for flowers, to put flowers inside. Then they open it, and inside were two different kind of metal. It was copper and iron. And on the bottom, they found acid. You know, if you have, for example, a lemon creates acid. You have wine creates acid. Now it dries up, but the acid still is on the ground. So if today, if today you take two different metals, copper, iron, put it in an object like this, add some acid, wine or lemon, it doesn't matter, then you have an electrical battery. That creates electricity in the Galvanian principle. But the old Egypt did not have it. We reconstructed this whole thing in the Mystery Park in Interlaken. And it worked, of course. Nie mehr muss ich einen Vortrag halten, wenn ich die Bilder nicht sehe. Das ist alles ein Oberscheiß. Darf nie mehr passieren. Du weißt nicht, was ist? Ja, und das geht auch nicht.
Nein, das ist ganz kaputt.
Ja, es ist bei jedem das Gleiche. Immer hier etwas. So, next mystery. Egypt is full of mysteries. Bring mal da. We were in Saqqara. Saqqara is the step pyramid. And in Saqqara are these underground tunnels. And in Saqqara is something else which no tourists ever sees. This is this entry here. The entry was covered up, was found up in 1954. And then they found writings on the wall of a pharaoh. The pharaoh's name was Sehemkhet. Sehemkhet comes from the 3rd dynasty, which means Sehemkhet is older than Cheops. Cheops, who constructed the Great Pyramid, according to archaeologists. Now, I was down there. In the meantime, by the way, since at least 25 years, this is all covered with sand again. You cannot go there. Even if you pay $2,000 backshish, no way. It's all covered with sand. It was open for a short period. So the entry, go, mach weiter. Then you came into an underground room. The underground room is not polished. You saw the ceiling is not polished. It's just raw material. And in the center, and then in the center of it, you see this sarcophagus. Normally, a sarcophagus, you've seen before sarcophagus, they have a lid. You take this lid off. Here, it is not lid. It was a gliding door. Like an animal, like for animal, a gliding door. You can see it here. It was in August 1954 when they were sure that in this sarcophagus they will find the mummy of Sehemkhet. Why were they sure? Because the gliding door was closed at that time when the archaeologists arrived. And the door was sealed. There was a seal up there. The seal was unbroken. And also, you saw the rest of a bunch of flowers. You know, there where the piece of wood is up there. There were a bunch of flowers. Of course, the flowers are not existing after thousands of years. You just see dust here. You see it on the sarcophagus. Dust, so that the wind is not blowing it away. They covered it with that wood you see here. So they were sure the mummy of the pharaoh must be in there, because the door was closed, the gliding door was closed, it was sealed, the seal was unbroken, somebody gave flowers to the end. And now they opened the sarcophaguses in summer 1954. And what happened? The sarcophagus was completely empty. Nothing in there. Now, how is this logical? It does not fit. You find an entry to Sehemkhet's tomb. The door to the entry of the tomb was closed, sealed. You came down, and in a room is this gigantic sarcophagus made out of alabaster. Alabaster looks like white marmor. The gliding door was closed. Again, a seal on the door, unbroken. A bunch of flowers. Thousands of years, someone comes here, opens the door, and the sarcophagus is empty. Nothing inside. How does this fit? Time capsule? Time machines? What is it? It just disappeared. It's all unlogical. By the way, the leading archaeologist, his name at that time was Zacharia Gonem. And after the journalists had made their photographs in 1954, Zacharia Gonem, with his handy lamp, went into the sarcophagus with his body. When he came out, he was not reasonable anymore. He could not speak. His eyes were different. He didn't speak to the students anymore. Before, he was a humorous personality. And now something went wrong. 3 days later, Zacharia Gonem, the archaeologist, killed himself. He jumped over a bridge on the Nile. Nobody could understand this. So his next, the follower of Zacharia Gonem, made the same mistake. He also went in here. And he killed himself 2.5 days later with pills, with tablets. Since that time, archaeologists in Egypt said there's something crazy here, something dangerous. That's why they closed the whole place for tourists. I was able to be there to make these photographs. And I told you, now it's all covered up by sand. Archaeologists are afraid of this place. Something is wrong in here, but we don't know what. The mysteries continue in Egypt. It's a never-ending story. Jetzt gaan we maar op piramide, hè? Dat gaat mir auf die Nerven mit dem dauernden Wechsel von Bild. Hä? Was machst du? Also, okay. Good. You saw this in my entry speech. I told you everything to create the pyramid which you see here is theoretically possible, but all is practically impossible. The most normal suggestion was that the Great Pyramid was constructed by a ramp, but a ramp from the Nile. But the Nile and the pyramids are 4 kilometers away. That means they must have constructed a ramp more than 4 kilometers. And the ramp becomes higher and higher and higher as the pyramid grows. So the ramp has finally more volume than the pyramid itself. It has been suggested that they made a ramp like a spiral around the pyramid. This does not work either. Finally, the spiral ramp has more volume than the pyramid itself again. All these suggestions here, you know, with ropes and wooden rollers, this is all theoretically possible. Practically every year I have a manuscript on my desk by clever engineers who make me the next suggestion how the pyramid was built. It's all possible. This is possible. But you have to have the knowledge. Now, Cheops, 4th dynasty, his father was Snorfu. Snorfu came directly out of Stone Age. It's a lake of evolution of technology. All these things you see here. They could not have known it. Somebody must have told it. It is not my opinion that extraterrestrials constructed the pyramid. No, the humans made the dirty works. But someone helped them with the engineering and with the tools. Now you see, there are shafts in the Great Pyramid going in two sides. One shaft points directly to the Orion belt. Osiris and Orion is the same. Then Isis is the woman of Orion. That's the next shaft, points directly to Sirius. Osiris and Orion is the same. Isis and Sirius are the same. So the names of the god and the goddess are in reality at the same time names of star systems out there. Inside the pyramid we have 3 rooms. And the 3 rooms have the same distances. I mean, you see the distance between one room and the other is bigger or smaller. It's the same distances which our inner planets have in the center of the sun. Then comes Mercury, Venus, the Earth in a certain distance, and it's equivalent. The pyramid does not stand just somewhere by coincidence. The pyramid stands on the same place where the distance to the North Pole is the same as the distance to the center of the Earth. Now all these little things, the old Egyptians could not have known. For example, Mercury is a teeny planet. They did not know about Mercury unless someone told them. Who could be the someone? Osiris. Now the old writings. We have all our information from the Western historians. Herodotus, Plato, Diodor of Sicily. All these men were 2,000 years more or less. They were all in Egypt. And they were all standing before the Great Pyramid. And they all asked the priest, who made this building? And the priest told them, we do not know who made this pyramid because it was constructed before the Great Flood. So why then does the pyramid has the name of Cheops? It's called Cheops Pyramid. Herodotus, the Greek writer, was there in Egypt 2,450 years ago. And he wrote 2 books about Egypt. And in his second book he said, and by the way, Herodotus makes always clear differences between what he sees with his own eyes, what he hears, where did he work with his feet, and what they simply told him. In his second book he says, someone told me that the tyrant of a pharaoh with the name of Cheops constructed the Great Pyramid within 20 years and with the help of 100,000 slaves. So Herodotus is the only writer in antiquity who comes up with the name of Cheops. All the other writers in antiquity, they say the priests did not know who made the pyramid. But the priests in Egypt 2,000 years ago or more, they should have known who made the pyramid. They said no. Only Herodotus said, someone told me. Now archaeology had the name of Cheops. Now they put the pyramid's name Cheops Pyramid. We have no tomb of Cheops. We have no pictures of Cheops. If Cheops would be a tyrant, the pyramid should be full of writings to his honor. All tyrants, they want to say, I am the greatest, I was the greatest. But the Great Pyramid is absolute anonymity. Now in my first speech, I was talking a lot about Enoch. I said Enoch was up in the sky, he learned the language of the extraterrestrials. They taught him in astronomy, but also in engineering and etc. Before Enoch left our planet Earth with the extraterrestrials, he went down to Earth again to say goodbye to his family. All this is written in the book of Enoch. He writes it himself in the first person. His oldest son was Methuselah, the one from the Bible. So Enoch gave to Methuselah a bunch of books. It was more than 100 scientific books to his son Methuselah, and ordered him, and now, my dear son Methuselah, I give you these books. Keep them carefully for the generations after the Great Flood. All this happened before the Great Flood. Then Enoch disappears. Now, 2 of the old Arabian writers, Ibrahim Abdul al-Makrizi and al-Masudi, yes. They wrote also about the pyramid, and in both cases they say the pyramid was constructed before the Great Flood by a king with the name Saurid. But Saurid is the same figure which the Hebrew community calls Enoch. Again, now our archaeologists completely disagreed. Enoch before the Great Flood? But when you stand on the pyramid plateau, you see this, for example. It all looks as if the plateau, you know, where the pyramid stands, was once covered with water. This is called the fourth pyramid. The tourists never see it. They don't show it. And you see the traces of water up there. So always on the pyramid plateau, mach einfach weiter. So, jetzt kommt das zuerst. Ja, du musst doch Unterschied. Zuerst muss der Schnatz auf die Pyramide kommen, jetzt muss es nach. Guck mal weiter, ja. I said, Cheops' father's name was Snorfu. Snorfu, of course, is seen from a technical point of view more primitive than his son Cheops, because Cheops learned. Snorfu, of course, had also built his own pyramid. What you see here is the outside of the Snorfu pyramid, the father of Cheops. When you look at it closer, you have the impression as if the pyramid, the whole building, was covered with water. It's much older, thousands and thousands of years ago. So the technology inside should be more primitive than the technology at Cheops' time. Now let's go inside this pyramid, this building. There is something like the Great Gallery, with gigantic stone blocks, some of them weighing 80 tons, one next to the other. Now let's go to the Great Pyramid, the normal pyramid. This is this. In the Great Pyramid, you call this the Great Gallery. The Great Gallery is about 47 meters long and about 8.5 meters high. And archaeologists say to tourists, it was Cheops and his architects and his engineers which for the first time were able to make something like this, like the Great Gallery. But it's not true. The father of Cheops did it already, as you see. Where does the technology come from? It's a late evolution of technology. Gehen wir mal weiter, das ist drin. Was kommt als nächstes da? Ah, Pumapunku. George, hast du schon von Pumapunku geredet? Sind das die gleichen Gäste? Ja. Yeah, just very brief, because I'm speaking of technology, evolution of technology. In South America, roughly 4,000 meter high, we have this place, Pumapunku. You saw it in Ancient Alien, and my friend Giorgio is talking about it. Now, Pumapunku is a mystery. Normally, it is my opinion that it was the humans who made all these constructions. The humans did the dirty work. The humans used their hands. But some of the technology, some of the knowledge, some of the engineering knowledge came from outside. But here the situation is different, because this is 4,000 meter high. There are is no wood, no trees for wooden rollers, etc. And you find gigantic platforms up here. And it's again granite or andesite. It's very, very hard. Mach einfach weiter, look weiter, it's got this long. And you see the cutting again. How it's cut. Now, according to archaeology, this was made by the Stone Age people, the Aymara. But to cut such a block, you need material which is harder than the stone itself. Look at this gigantic block, how it's polished. This does not fit into the technology of evolution at that time to the Stone Age people. Now, some 400 years ago, the Spanish conquerors were up here, and then they were surrounded by natives. And the Spanish saw these blocks, and the Spanish asked the natives, who made this? What was it? And the natives answered, we did not make this. It was the gods who made it in one simple night. The gods? What? We have no explanation for this kind of stone. We don't know what it should be. Mach weiter. You see one of these small stones, and it has a groove on the side. Look with them. This groove is so precise that you could not cut it with a stone chisel. It does not work. I'm with them. And in the groove, okay. Now you okay. Every few centimeters is a hole. Jetzt machen wir weiter. When somebody cuts stones like this, certain niches in there, that means another piece had to fit in it. That means planning and calculation. Planning and calculation means writing. But Stone Age people had no writing. They had no calculation at their time. Look, such a complicated block. Planning. And then these so-called H blocks, George sells some of them in a small form. Now we have made absolutely calculations with them. We made a computer animation. Engineers were working for us. We wanted to know, how does these things fit together? Just look at it. It's all prefabricated blocks, like a Lego work for the kids. This does not fit in Stone Age time, the planning. Now I said, normally it was the humans who made it, except in that case. Why? There was a gigantic mother spaceship in orbit. From the mother spaceship, smaller vehicles have come out. From the smaller vehicles, again, smaller vehicles come out. Like in your case, we had a landing on the moon. A gigantic rocket, Saturn V, started. But Saturn V did not reach the moon. Only a smaller vehicle surrounded the moon. And from the smaller vehicle, again a smaller vehicle, the lunar module, came down on the surface of the moon. And later, out of the lunar module, you have again a smaller vehicle, the moon car. It's like here. So now these extraterrestrials, they behave themselves like today's ethnologists would do. Of course, they have all kind of equipment with them. Today, our ethnologists, they have equipment for measuring, they have photo equipment, film equipment, and all this thing. Whatever they had, the extraterrestrials, we don't know. But they had equipment. Now, you don't want to carry on every day your equipment, your whole equipment. So what you need is a base camp, where you can deposit your equipment, which is safe against the animals and against the humans. That's why in one night, with their technology, the extraterrestrials made these things. Prefabricated block, put it together. Just as a deposit for their equipment. Now, at some day, their work was done. They disappeared again. And what was left was Pumapunku. Now the natives come. They touch these walls with their fingers. And they say, hey, that was made by the gods. So the place becomes a holy place. And now they construct a temple next to it. So in Pumapunku, you can prove two completely separated evolutions of technology. The oldest one is the one from the gods, with cut, polished stones, prefabricated, etc. And the other is the temple made by the humans, by the Aymara. So that's one of the places where I say, here we have a technology which is not from the earth. I always ask myself, why is it so complicated? Why does the people do not understand this? And I know why. We live in this society of being reasonable, and it seems for them it's unreasonable. And we are arrogant. Normally our scientific are wonderful people, but some of them are terrible, arrogant. On this planet Earth, you have always two groups of people. One group is religious. The religious group believe God made everything. He made the earth and the plants and the trees and Adam and Eve. So as crown of creation, God made us. And the other group is the scientific group. The scientific group, they believe everything in evolution. So one came next to the other, but we are the top of evolution. So have you ever remarked, in both cases, if you look at it religiously, we are the crown of creation. If you look at it scientifically, we are the top of evolution. In both cases, we always think we are the greatest. And we do not want that someone else is greater than us. That's why we do not expect extraterrestrials. We are against extraterrestrials. We are the greatest. We did everything. It's like this national thinking. I am one of these travelers who travel throughout the world. And now my books are known, and I'm always invited at archaeological circles and so. And they always bring me example to prove that their civilization is the oldest in the world. I am in Ecuador, which is the highland of South America. And they give me some examples. Say, look, Erich, this is 10,000 years old. All the civilization came from us, from Ecuador. I was in Australia a few months ago, and there they showed me other stuff from the Aborigines. And they said, this is the oldest civilization. The world civilization comes from Australia. Others say, no, the oldest civilization is Egypt. All has come from Egypt. So it's just this nationalistic thinking. We are the greatest. It all started at our place. In reality, we had help from outside. And this still happens today. And I can prove this easy. Buritaka, okay. Yeah, bring some more. Buritaka is something which normally no other writer in our family knows. It's completely, you see it, it's in the jungle. In the jungle of Colombia, South America. The place is called Buritaka, or the lost or the secret city. I was there some years ago, and I flew in by helicopter, because when you would go there on a horseback, you would take about 1 week to go there. And the jungle is full of dangerous animals. You see some platforms in there. It looks as if they are modern platform made for today's helicopters. But these platforms are thousands of years old. I was landing with the helicopter on one of these platforms. But as I said, thousands of years old. Now the whole mountain is artificially. Wherever I stood, did I look forward, backward? It was always artificial. You see this endless stairway. I counted the steps. It was 1,012 steps, all in the jungle. Incredible. Who made all these things? Well, a tribe they called the Kogi Indians. And the Kogi Indians, they have a wonderful religion. Of course, of course they know the story of the Great Flood. But again, like others, they say, it all started in our place. We are the oldest civilization, they say. One day the gods descended to them. They were called the Mamas. And the Mamas taught mankind in building and constructing. And why have they constructed such a gigantic city in the jungle? Because the Mamas promised that one day they will return. They will return to that place, not to another place. So they want to be sure that they are ready to accept the return of the gods. Everything, whatever you see, is artificial. The whole mountain. Look at this. One platform next to the other. Now, the natives have still today their houses. And their houses, they have all to do with astronomy. They believe that we are the 5th level. Above us and over us are 4 different levels of the universe. We are just the 5th level in the universe. There are 4 others below us and 4 others beneath us. And their houses are not just made by coincidence. You see, one of these hits here is the women's house, and the other one is the man's house. Now from the man's house you have a stick pointing up right to the sky. It symbolizes the phallus, the penis. Now on March 21st, the sun moves and the shadow of the phallus crosses the cross of the ladies, the woman's house, which means it's springtime, you have to put the seed into the earth. It's not coincidence. Okay, mach weiter. Und jetzt Uferfilm, oder? Now, I will prove you. Wait a second. Still today we are under observation, and we are in a conference here who has also to do with UFOs. And I will show you now one short UFO film which you definitely cannot falsificate. Because always in these UFO photographs they say, oh come on, you have computer, you can falsificate this. What you just see, you cannot falsificate. I received the film from a pilot which was flying an aircraft, an American aircraft, and it took place over the airport Hernandez near Aguadilla in Puerto Rico on April 26, 2013 at 1:22 p.m. Why can you not falsificate what you just see? In the aircraft you have a camera, and the camera is fixed. You cannot move the camera. And around the frame, you will just see it. All the datas, you can read all the datas. For example, how high is the aircraft? What's the speed at the moment? How far away is the object which you have in your order? What is the geographical position? And on the second exactly, you see all the informations around it. Okay. All the informations around it. And when you look to the figures, they change always. Every 10 seconds, the information changes. And in the center, you see the UFO. The UFO flew first over some hills and then over an airport. The airport was closed for more than 2 hours. And then over what's the chiefs have a harbor. A harbor, yes, good. Your English is perfect. A harbor. And then it fell into the water, and you will just realize out of the water came 2 bodies, not only one. And you cannot falsificate this thing. We are under observation. There is no technology on Earth that this thing is from us. And observe the dates who change all the time. Now we have 2, you see? Want to see this again? Yes. Zeig das nochmal. Look, we start again.
Eric, do you think the other one that came up as well could have been a hologram?
Huh?
Just because they felt possibly threatened that they had sights on them?
Ich verstand überhaupt nicht, was das heißt.
Ask again, sorry.
I just wondered whether, as 2 seem to come back out of the water,
Yes.
maybe one was a holographic image
No.
to detract because they didn't know that there was sights on them. They
No.
didn't know whether it was friendly or not.
I was not there. I just received the film from the pilot, and I just see the dates. You know, the dates change every second.
Yeah.
I don't think that is a holograph. Ja.
Es ist ja über dem Flughafen gewesen.
Yes.
Und dann haben sie es zuerst...
Yeah, it was, you know, it was on the radar from the airport there. It was on the radar from the aircraft itself. Then it fell into water. Now it's in the water. And now from the water you see 2 pieces coming up. In literature, I know of different cases where UFO of a sudden separated into 2 or even 3 pieces. So someone is here, I think. Someone is observing us. And I even accuse our holy popes that they do not say the truth. And I say this as a Catholic. I'm educated as a Catholic. I have to tell you the story about Fatima. Was sind jetzt alle die blöde Zettel hier? Ich glaube, ich habe wieder etwas falsch gemacht. Ich meinte, ich habe größere Titel gehabt. Anyhow, bringen wir das erste Bild. Ja. Ich habe wieder einen Puff. Ich habe Fatima nicht da. Das ist alles.
Nee, das ist sehr entfernt. Komm, ich schaue es mal.
Ja, schauen wir mal. So, it was, yes? Huh? Yeah, okay, that's maybe that's a great idea. Thank you for your help. This works here. Mine does not work. Yeah. Look at that, that's een stark gelezen. That's a miracle. Oh God. Ah, good. Ich habe Fatima vergessen, weil das wäre ein lange A4-Zettel. Ich kann es improvisieren. Komm. Ja, das ist alles Seraphim.
Ja.
Bringt nichts. So. Das ist alles ein Blödsinn. Some 25 years ago, I wrote a book about apparitions. I know what apparitions are. I have visited on this planet at least 20 places where apparitions took place. Mostly, some children saw figures in the sky. Mostly, it was the Holy Mother Mary. And then was one apparition which was different to all the apparitions in the world, and it was the apparitions of Fatima. What is Fatima? Fatima is a small village in Portugal. And of course, Portugal is a Catholic country. So the people of Fatima, they were Catholic too. And it took place on October 13th in the year 1917. So October 13th, 1917. There were these three kids. Out, they were shepherds with their animals. And of a sudden, they saw over a tree a figure appearing. Because they are Catholic, they believe the figure must be the Virgin Holy Mary. They all went down on their knees and they started to pray. And they hear the voice, but not by their ears. The voice was telepathically in there. And the voice commanded them they should go home and tell what they have seen here. And the oldest of the children, her name was Lucia, said, but they will not believe us. And the lady said, I will prove that this is true, because every month, at the same time and the same minute, at the same place, for 6 months, I will come again. So the kids went home, they told the story to their parents. And the father said, come on, you just dream, you are telling lies, and so on. And then Lucia, the old girl, said, no, the Mary told us she will appear again next month and next month and next month. So the first appearance was on May 13th, 1970. So on June, the three children went out, followed by about 20 other people. And on the same second, again this lady appeared over a tree. So it repeated it months of May, months of June, months of July, August, etc. Always at the same minute, at the same place. So finally more and more and more people came out and accompanied the three children. And on October, 13th October 1917, there were 80,000 people out on the field. You see, at that time, we only had black and white photos. Nobody had this cell phone. You could not make photos in 1917. That's why the pictures are bad. I had to take these pictures out of the newspapers at that time. But you see, 80,000 people, October 13th, 1970. And at that day, it was rainy. You see, here, it heißt Regenschirm, umbrellas. Umbrellas, so. And exactly on the second, which the lady announced, a miracle appeared. 80,000 people were looking up there. Now you see the umbrellas are away. They all look into the sky, shining. So of a sudden, a gigantic disc appeared in the sky. And the disc turned by itself and spread out in different colors, rays in blue, green, yellow, whatever. And it took 4 minutes, not just a few seconds. 4 minutes, they were watching this disc coming closer and closer. The rain stopped abruptly. And after 4 minutes, the disc turned on the other side, again spreading colors of different kinds, and disappeared. The whole thing took place for 8 minutes. 4 minutes coming down and 4 minutes disappearing. This is called the wonder of the sun in Fatima. Is das nächste Bild schon Sonnenwunder, ne? Yeah. When you go today to Fatima in the cathedral. Fatima has become a pilgrim place, of course. Then you see in the glass windows, you see the representation of the wonder of the sun, what these 80,000 people have seen. Now, the oldest of the girl, Lucia, she later went to a convent. She became a sister in a convent. And the lady, the appearance lady, gave to Lucia a message. Lucia was writing the message with a pencil in her school Schulheft, was ist das? Whatever, school book, whatever. And the lady had ordered that this message should be brought to the highest representative of this planet. She did not say to a king. Portugal has a king. Spain had a king. She said the highest representative of this earth. So the message written by the girl, Lucia, went to the priest, the local priest, to the next cardinal, went to Rome with the order to be opened on October 13th, 1960. So it all took place in 1917. Only 43 years later, 1960, this message should be opened and given to the public of the world. So this Sister Lucia in the convent, later she gave different interviews. Journalists asked her, Holy Sister, what's in the message? In the message of Fatima. And she always said, I am not allowed to say anything, but the Pope will make it to public on October 17, 1960. So the journalists knew 1960 this miracle will be open. And in fact, the Pope then, it was John the 23rd, he ordered many cardinals and high priests into the Vatican. The journalists know the date, so the journalists were waiting outside the door. And they closed the door and they opened the secret of Fatima. After about 2.5 hours, the door were opened and the journalists went to the priests, to the cardinals, and asked, what's in the message? And all the priests and cardinals said, we cannot say nothing. We are not allowed to say anything. Finally, the Pope had to say something. And he said, I cannot publish the message. It would create a panic. Now, I don't understand this. In 1960, there was still Cold War between the Western and the Eastern complex. You know, the Soviet Union and the United States and so on. And there were danger that a world war would break up. You know, there were rockets, Pershing, SS-20 and so on. So the journalists believe maybe the secret of Fatima has something to do with the next world war. That's why the Pope is not publishing it. So they went to the cardinal. Ist das drin, der Schrift? They went to the cardinal, and on September 30th, 1984, the Bishop of Leyra said, the third secret of Fatima has nothing to do with atom bombs, nothing with Pershing and SS-20 rockets, nothing with the destruction of the world. The content releases out to our fate. There are serious reasons for the Catholic Church to renounce the publication. Now, I am educated as a Catholic, and as you know, even a good Catholic. I was for 6 years in a boarding school led by Jesuits. I know that for the Catholics, the Holy Mary, Virgin Mary, it is a dogma that we believe that she left our planet Earth with her body, like Jesus. She went into the heaven with her body. So the Mother Mary is, so to say, the highest goddess in heaven, next to Jesus. So she knows what she does. And she gives order in 1970, order written down by the girl, Lucia, that this message should be given to the public by the Pope, by the highest representatives of this planet, in 1960. The Pope opens the secret and says, I cannot publish it, it would create a panic. Now the journalists think maybe it has to do with the next world war. And then the Bishop of Leyra, you know, Fatima is a small village, the next bigger city is Leyra in Portugal. That's why the Bishop of Leyra. Bishop of Leyra says, no, it has nothing to do with atomic bombs, with world war, etc. It contains our religion, our belief. How is this possible? The Holy Mary gives an order, but the highest representative, the Pope, refuses the order and says, I cannot publish it. Because it was never the Holy Mary. It was extraterrestrials who gave an order. In 1970, a group of extraterrestrials were surrounding our planet. They realized that our technology at that time was still primitive. For example, in 1970, we had no satellites. 17, yes. We had no satellites. In 1917, it was not possible that the Pope or the King goes on microphone and the whole world could listen to it. The technology was not existing there. So the extraterrestrials realized the technology is not advanced enough that the message could be read to the whole mankind, whole humanity. So they decided in 1960, 43 years later, the technology of the humans will be in a way that they can make public it to the world. And then they open it and they cannot say it. Because now they see in this message, it was not the Holy Mary. But in the meantime, between 1917 and 1960, Kathedrale voor Dingstegen, Fatima has become a pilgrim place. Every year, 1 million of pilgrims go to Fatima and pray to the Holy Mother Mary. Now imagine, he opens the secret and he realizes it was not Mother Mary. Of course, now he cannot say, hey, he cannot say this to the public, because Fatima is in the meantime a holy place of the Holy Virgin Mary. He has to say, I cannot publish it. It will create the panic, which is true, it would create the panic. 1 million of pilgrims every year. They deeply believe, honestly, in the Mother Mary. And the Pope would have to say, I'm sorry, it was all wrong, it was not the Mother Mary. That's the situation. These popes, since 1960, they know exactly that this planet is observed by extraterrestrials. But they think the time is not right to go to public with that. The so-called disclosure will come slowly, step by step, by government people, including by people of the church. The Fatima has a very big astronomical section, and they know, they even give it to the public, that we are not alone, that there are intelligent beings out there. They know it. They have gone to public with that message, but not with the message about Fatima. So we are in the middle of living it. We are the first generation who understand step by step. We are not alone. They will return. And this believing of return is a fact since centuries. You see, when the first, when the first conquerors, Francisco Pizarro, went to today's Peru, the Incas, they fell on the ground. They believed that Pizarro was the long expected god. When Hernando Cortes was the Spanish conqueror, went to Mexico for the first time. In Mexico, the Aztecs were ruling. And the boss of the Aztecs, Moctezuma is his name, he fell on his ground, on his knees. He believed that the Spanish is a long expected god. The same thing in Central America, and in the same thing, of course, in the Pacific. You have James Cook, who discovered Hawaii. The first time he came to Hawaii, the natives all fell on the ground. They believed that he was a god, a long expected god. So the believing that someone will return from heaven to us is not a Christian invention. That existed long before Christianity. And what do we have today? I'm educated as a Christian. We Christians, we believe that one day Jesus will return. But the Muslim society, they believe the same thing. They believe that one day their Mahdi will return. And as we know, every Buddhist believes that Buddha will return. We know the great Jewish community, they believe since 5,200 years that their Messiah will return. So every living religion still today has that belief of return of someone. Now, honestly, not every religion can be right. Some of them must be wrong. I suggest they are all wrong. Neither Jesus, nor Buddha, nor Messiah, nor Mahdi will return. It is the extraterrestrials who return. When they left the earth some thousands of years ago, they promised to some of our intelligent forefathers, which learned the language of them, we will return. Do not forget it. And it entered into the holy literature. Since thousands of years, we all wait for the return. And I think now it's the time they have returned. The question is why they do not go up in public. I mean, with the UFO, you could show yourself over a football stadium. There are 80,000 people waiting. Hello, up there. They don't do it because it would give a shock to the humans. And they know exactly how we functions. They know exactly how our brain functions. They know exactly how our religions function. They have studied all this. We are the offsprings of them. So they know what our reaction would be. So they want to avoid a shock, to do it piece by piece, slowly, that we understand who we are and what is going on. And Fatima is one of the cases. We showed it to the humans. He should publish the message, but he did not. Sooner or later, he will. He must. So now I was talking a lot of things, and now I like to hear you. Certainly you have thousands of questions. George, bist du immer noch da?
Nein, ist nicht.
Okay. Certainly you have thousands of questions. What can I do for you? I better go down here because these lights make me sick here. So, now I'm at your disposal. We have just a small family conversation. Ask me whatever you like. I hope I understand everything. Are you here?
Hello, Mr. Duncan.
When you originally wrote Chariots of the Gods, were you able to get that published right away?
No.
Was there any? Yeah.
Yes, the gentleman asked.
Go ahead. You could
Yeah.
just repeat my question.
Yes.
That's okay.
Okay, here, the gentleman.
He's...
All right.
And,
What's your name?
yeah.
My question is, when you wrote Chariots of the Gods, did you have trouble getting that published?
Oh, yes. I wrote Chariots of the Gods, and I had the manuscript finished in 1966. I had a publishing company in Germany. What I thought, I would be very, very proud if my book would be published in this company. So I sent the manuscript to them, and they rejected the manuscript. Later, and in 1966, when you made photocopies, it's not like today. You just put it, press a button, and then 20 copies come out. You have to push every page on its, whatever it is. So, okay. So I sent the manuscript to 20 publishers in Germany. 20 copies of the manuscript in Germany. And 20 publishers rejected it. No one wanted to publish this book. But at that time, I was by profession the managing director of a first-class hotel in Switzerland, which came from a microphone. We all came from the Okay, is this thing working? Ah, der meint wegen der Ding oder wegen dem Film. Nein, es geht nicht das, es geht die Film, was machen da, weißt du? Okay, so I was a managing director of a hotel in Switzerland, first-class hotel, because from my family we come from the hotel business. So I had sent the manuscript to more than 20 publishers, everyone rejected. And every year I had one guest in my hotel. He was a scientific editor of a big German weekly newspaper. The newspaper's name is Djed, the Times, so to say. And we were discussing by drinking wine, and so I knew him, everyone, discussing about extraterrestrials and my ideas. And he said, Erich, you should write a book. I said, I have a book. But nobody wants the book. And I said, come on, we can find a way. And the next morning he phoned to the same publishing house which rejected my manuscript already. And I hear him today. He said to someone, which I didn't know, hey, good morning, Werner. I am in Switzerland, and I have a young man here. He has written a complete crazy book, but the man is not crazy. You should listen to him. So the next 3 days I was in Düsseldorf in Germany, and I gave him the manuscript. Then it took another 2 days, and then he phoned me back, yes, we will make it. We will publish it just in a low edition of about 4,000 copies. The low edition, within months, had 200,000-300,000 copies. It came like a bomb. And then, of course, I was attacked. I was criticized practically by everyone. They all crashed it down. All. They say, what is this stupid idea? Extraterrestrials were here and influenced the planet. This is all nonsense. And he's just the manager of a hotel. He's not an archaeologist or a scientist or whatever. How can he publish something? Anyhow, the rest is known. But it was rejected. Nobody wanted to publish it in the beginning. Now the situation has changed. Yeah.
Do you know of the Vatican's observatory in Arizona?
Arizona? No.
Yes, I live right below Mount Graham, and the Vatican itself has an observatory that it visits very frequently on top of Mount Graham.
Oh, I didn't know this. Thank you. You are closer to the information than I am. You have some questions?
No, I was just going to say the same thing. I live in that same area, and the Vatican keeps a very close watch, and they know that something's going on.
Of course they know it. You see, when I was a boy, I told you I was educated in a Catholic school, etc. Later, after Chariots of the Gods, I moved my home into a Swiss town with the name of Solothurn. And I had a big, great home. I was not the owner, I was simply the renter. And my neighbor was the bishop. And then one evening, one of my teachers from the college was working for the bishop. He phoned me and said, Erich, our bishop would be very, very happy to make a personal contact with you. So we were just neighbors. So one evening, I went to the bishop's house, and he was very, very friendly. He even asked me if I want to drink a glass of champagne. He was sitting on chairs, and so very, very friendly. And then he said to me, Mr. von Daniken, do you know what responsibility you have? Do you know that maybe many people, because of your writing of Chariots of the Gods, will leave the church? He did not offer me $1 million. Unfortunately, he did not offer me no money at all. I would anyhow never have taken it. So, and I said, yes, I know. I am responsible for that, but I think all the people are reasonable. They can think. Everybody can choose and think what he feels. So I am responsible, so I did not say something against Chariots of the Gods. In the meantime, the result are 40 titles. Not so bad. Yes, please go on. Yeah, come on.
Lovely to meet you, sir, and thank you very much for coming. Since your original ideas, have you rethought any of them and had a different idea about any of your original writings? And also, are you working on another book?
Yes, thank you. Now, since I wrote Chariots of the Gods, I of course realized that there I made some mistakes. Some stuff is wrong. I give you 2 or 3 examples. In Chariots of the Gods, by the way, I was a young man when I made Chariots of the Gods. I was enthusiastic. I was in no way scientific, etc. But I visited all the places I write about. So I was in Egypt as a young man for the first time. I was 19 years old then. And near Aswan, up there on the Nile, is a little island. The island is called Elephantine. And the teacher up there told me this island has the name Elephantine because seen from the air, it has the size, the form of an elephant. And in Chariots of the Gods, I wrote that. I said, how could they have known that from the air it looks like an elephant? Later, I found out it does not look like an elephant at all. The island is called Elephantine because in ancient times, elephants were on the island. So, or I was in Delhi, India, New Delhi, and there is an old temple, and in the center of the temple court is a pillow. It's an iron pillow. And the pillow was not rusty. Huh? Pillar, yeah. Yeah, pillar. You know what I mean? Okay. And the pillar is not rusting. And the local people told me there that this is a material which has been brought to Earth by some superior beings. I wrote this in my book, Chariots of the Gods. There is this iron pillar and it's not rusting. Later, 4 years ago, I was again there in India, the same temple. And in the meantime, the stand pillar is rusting. So there are always a few things which I regret, which were wrong. But at that time, when I wrote it, I could not know it. But in the meantime, the whole story, the basic story, we have been visited by extraterrestrials. They have partly changed our DNA code, etc. I am absolutely sure of that, because in the meantime, I know so much of old writings. I'm the specialist. I know my Enoch, I know all the old Indian texts, etc. And there it is handed down. I have no doubts that we were visited by beings from outer space. But some of the indications have turned out to be wrong. Some of them, not many of them. Of course, I'm writing a new book. It's a never-ending story. When I'm home, I will finish the next 100 pages of the manuscript. And as I think, but I'm, okay. It's the best stuff I ever made since Chariots of the God. One other word to Chariots of the Gods, when I was accused all the time. In Chariots of the Gods, I had 238 question marks. No one read the question marks. They just said, that's what he says. So he had the question mark. Could it be? So I asked for. Our reaction was that way. Okay, next one. Yes, sir. Hi.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you. You have awesome energy, and I enjoy being in your presence. Who were some of your mentors and your mentors?
My mentor?
Yeah, are there any people in this world that mentored you, or do you look in the past at any big no?
No, I had never mentor. I never admired somebody especially. And it all came out of my heart. You know the story, Chariots of the Gods. I started to research because of religious doubts. It was burning inside. As a Catholic, I learned that the God of the Bible obviously is not the real God, because he uses vehicles which move around. He descends on the holy mountain with smoke, fire, trembling, loud noise. The mountain was glowing like an oven, etc. So the real God does not do these things. I am still a deep believer in God. I pray every evening to God. But my God is different than the God when I was a Christian boy. So now I had no mentor. I never received money from anyone, so I would not even have accepted it at that time. Yes, please continue. What happened to you? I have a... Here.
Of the 38 books that you've written, of the 38 books that you've written.
No, 40 now. Well, 40. What I'm writing now is number 40.
Which I have not read any of them, and this definitely fancies my interest. Which one should I begin with?
Well, Chariots of the Gods is the oldest one. It's more than 45 years old. But I have more books on the American market which nobody knows about. There is a publishing house called Carrier Press. Twilight of the Gods, huh? You. Go into internet, Amazon. Erich von Daniken, Twilight of the Gods. That's one of the latest titles which is available in the United States. Twilight of the Gods. Yes, who is coming? Yeah, here. You, the man with the laser.
Man with the laser. Name's Dave. Okay, very much appreciate you being here. Have you ever seen a UFO?
No, it's a shame. I have never seen a UFO, but what I had was wonderful dreams about UFOs. I had dreams, and in these dreams I was so happy that I wanted to continue to dream. I didn't want to wake up. When I wake up in my bed, I said to myself, come on, Erich, continue the dream. But I could not sleep again. I had wonderful dreams about UFOs, and so sort of telepathical contact. But I never saw with my eyes in reality a UFO. It's a shame. They don't show it to me. Yes, please.
Is there any place in Egypt that you would like to visit that you were not allowed to visit before in the past?
No. You know, in Egypt, it's always a question of paying. They call it bakshish. In my first speech, I showed you I was under the pyramid. There is this, have you seen my first speech? Here? Under the pyramid, there is a lake with a sarcophagus in the water. I paid about $2,500 bakshish to one of the professors that I could go down there. And they always say, please, no camera, no camera. But I always have a little camera, and I always do it. On the other hand, I always respect something. You see, in Egypt, one of the Egyptologists one day brought me together with an anthropologist from Egypt. And we were in a subterranean tomb, and the anthropologist explained me the bones. There were bones of two different animals together. And he said, this is a mixed creature. This creature must have been alive because the bones are still here. And he asked me, Eric, do not make photographs and don't go to public with it. And I did not make photographs. I did not go to public with it. Why not? If I would have taken photographs in that case, and then I go to public, the journalists now go to the Egyptian, to the professor, and he will deny. He will say, no, Mr. von Daniken, he did not understand me correctly, or he was telling a lie, so I'm a liar. And all the friendship you have with the scientists is gone. The connection is gone, so sometimes I keep my mouth too. Yes.
Hello. You've spoken about sarcophaguses that when they look like dog doors, and when people lay down in them, they got depressed and then they killed themselves. Has that been tested for strychnine or anything weird?
No, not they killed themselves. You see the sarcophagus which you saw here from Sehemkhet had a gliding door. The gliding door was closed when they found the sarcophagus. Up on the gliding door was a seal. The seal was unbroken. So, and there was a bunch of flour of it. So now thousands of years later, they opened the gliding door and it was nothing inside. It was completely empty, absolutely nothing. Later, Professor Dr. Gonain, Gon, went in there with his body. And when he came out, he was crazy and he killed himself. We have no idea. No, because his follower, the next professor had the same thing. He killed himself with tablets. And since then, the Egyptian government closed this tomb of Sehemkhet. Nobody, it's all covered with sand again. But I was there, you saw the photos. Yes, sir.
Sorry, it's me again. Regarding the empty sarcophagus, is it not possible that back in the day, grave robbers could have gone in, taken the body, resealed it to make it look like it wasn't tampered with?
Theoretically, you cannot exclude that. I don't understand why. You see, in this room, the room had nothing was chiseled, flat, like concrete. It was all primitive rock, just chipped out of the. It was no gold, nothing valuable in there. And even if grave robbers come in there, why should they take out the body of it and then close it and put the seal on? You cannot exclude that. But, well, yeah.
Maybe, Eric, that person was so revered that his body was wanted.
Yeah, his body was wanted. Yes, sir.
Eric, have you ever found or know of anyone who's discovered the Library of Alexandria?
Now, you see, some thousands of years ago, our ancestors had millions of books, not just a few thousand, or millions of books. Then the Library of Alexandria, hold about 800,000 volumes, was burnt down. Then at the time of, it doesn't matter, they refueled again the Library of Alexandria with 200,000 new volumes. They sent the people all out into the villages. Wherever there was a book, they collected it and brought it back to Alexandria. Another 200,000. They burned it down a second time. The library of Ethiopia, the kings of Ethiopia, burned down when Diego de Landa, here, Central America, Mexico. Diego de Landa was the bishop at that time. He came to Mexico. They found thousands and thousands of Mexican handwritings. Wonderful, in 4 colors, on the front and on the back page. Diego de Landa, the bishop, gave order that all these high priests had to be killed. All the books came out of the temples. They burned it all down. So it was a catastrophe also in China and elsewhere. Mankind had at least 2 or 3 million books in the past. They all disappeared. Just a very few have left, like the book of Enoch, which we found by coincidence in an old library in Ethiopia. But if we would still have these books, it would not be so complicated for me to find indication to support the case that we were visited. If these books were still there, my goodness, it would be knowledge for everyone that we have been visited. Yeah, mankind has always killed everything, destroyed everything. Man always wanted to be right. Yes, my dear sir.
Thank you, sir. Eric, if Aladdin came, or a genie came here right now and gave you a genie, you know, like in Aladdin, you know, you rub the bottle and the genie comes out. Okay, and he gave you 3 wishes. What would be your, if you could ask any question or anything could happen, what would be your 3 wishes?
Oh, really? Really, I mean, this is the question nobody can answer. Of course, what everyone wishes is to be in good health. Definitely, to have a long life. In the meantime, I said 81, that's okay. But if I would become 100 years old, but in best condition, including the brain, that means that with 100 years old, I would know much more. I could defend the case much more. So I would say to the gene, yes, please, I want to become 120 years old in best health. And the rest, I don't know, because money comes automatically. When you become old and right, your money comes automatically. By the way, I have never become a rich man. I was never the owner of a big villa, big house with swimming pool and all these things. I never was driving a Ferrari or something. I was always just a normal, stupid being as I still am. Because, of course, I made money. Sometimes I made money, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year. But it all spent. I have an archive at home with about 200,000 pictures, which is all electrified. Digitalized, which is all digitalized. I had expeditions, for example, I was in the upper Amazon River, or I was here in this case, Buritaka in Colombia, where I simply hired a helicopter. Then normally the army in South American countries say, no, you cannot hire a helicopter, that's impossible. So it's always a question of paying. I was in the upper Amazon River at some place, and I went to an oil company. The oil company had helicopters. And finally, I said, Eric, the place you want to go is too far away. We need 2 helicopters because we have to make a deposit for the fuel. You know, the helicopter has only a certain range. Then he has to stop and refuel again. But there is no refueling, so we have to make deposits. So the whole story was about 150,000 Swiss francs. So money comes in all the time, I always spend it again. Not for luxury, absolutely not, no.
For purpose.
Huh? Yes, for my profession. Yeah. Okay, someone else? Yes. No. Wait. That's right.
Of all the places that you've visited, which are the 3 that you recommend we...
Which place?
Yeah, of all the places you've traveled to, what are the top 3 that you recommend we...
Well, still Egypt. Everyone has to go to Egypt, and everyone has to go into the Great Pyramid, and you have to climb into the Great Pyramid. Absolutely a must. Then the next spot is Nazca in Peru. You can fly down to Nazca. In the meantime, you can hire a little aircraft, and you fly over the plain of Nazca with these lines. But then be careful, because the pilots don't want to fly you over certain places. You have to tell them, look, Here I pay $100 more than what you ask. Normally they ask $150 for a flight. You say, okay, I give you $250, but you have to fly over the lines, las líneas, not over just over the animals, the fishes and the birds and the spider and all that shit here. You have to fly over the lines, the mountains, give him more dollars. So that's the second place. Nazca is an absolute must. And in Central America, wonderful places like Teotihuacan. Fly to Mexico City. From Mexico City, you take a taxi. It's just 40 kilometers and spend a whole day in Teotihuacan. That's impressive, gigantic pyramids. This way, you know, the Camino de los Muertos, the way of the dead. It's fantastic. So 3 places: Egypt, Nazca in Peru, and Teotihuacan in Mexico. Somebody's in the back here. Yeah, come on. Very good.
What do you think about the pyramids in Bosnia?
Oh. Yes, I was there. And I admired the man, you know, who made this discovery, and he's still, what's his name? Yes, exactly. I was there, and he was guiding me, and I think he's a honest man, but in my opinion, the pyramid is not artificial, but the tunnels are. You see, the pyramid, I think it's a mountain which has the shape of a pyramid, and somebody helped, you know, crashing, chiseling, that it looked a little more like a pyramid. But the mountain itself is a natural mountain. But then in the mountain, there are tunnels, kilometers of tunnels. These are all old, really. I don't know what it was. But the pyramid itself, I don't think is artificial. Yes, my dear. Oh, ich muss gerade einen Flug nehmen nach Los Angeles. Yeah.
Thank you very much for all the work you've done. And I'd like to ask you, do you know much about the new discoveries in China, the big caves, and then all the tunnels in Turkey? These are two very big, fairly recent discoveries.
I was not in the tunnels in China. I know about it. I have friends who were there. I saw their films and photographs, but I was not there in person. That's why in none of my book I have written about it. I write only things which I have seen. The tunnels in Turkey I know very, very well. In the beginning means about 20 years ago, there were, you know, there's a valley of Göreme in Turkey. And in the beginning, there were 16 underground cities. The tourists go there and they enter in Derinkuyu and in Kaymakli. And these cities, underground cities, they are linked together with tunnels. Between one city and the other is a tunnel of 8 kilometers. You can grab in there and you go. In the meantime, they speak of 37 cities, underground cities, and they are all linked together. And no one has an idea what for. There must have been a certain time where 1 million people went underground. Why? You see, it has been suggested that there is a volcano near. They were afraid of the volcano when the volcano explodes, but it makes no sense to go underground because then the lava goes underground too, and you are killed by the heat or by the oxygen or whatever. So we have no idea why more or less 1 million people went underground. But you can prove it. Go to Turkey, go to Derinkuyu, Kaymakli, everyone, as tourists, you can climb down there. It's fascinating. And you come out, you have no answer. Yes, sir.
Have you ever been threatened by the political elite, the establishment?
Maybe, I'm not sure. I was always attacked by scientists, mostly by theologians and archaeologians. Now, in this country, Chariots of the Gods has become a bestseller like in most other countries, and 2 years after Chariots of the Gods was a bestseller, an anti-book came on the market. The title was Crash to Chariots. And I asked my publisher, who is this Professor Dr. Wilson who wrote it? It said he is an archaeologist. So years passed, and I was in Australia. I was in Australia in a talk show. And on this talk show was Mr. Wilson, whatever his name was, the author of Chariots of a Crash to the Chariot. And I was told here in the United States that he's a professor in archaeology. So after the show, we met, we drank a glass of wine together, we were very friendly, and I asked him, what kind of professor of archaeology are you? I mean, are you a specialist in Egyptology or in Sumeriology, Central American archaeology? And he said, Erich, I am not an archaeologist. I said, what are you? I am a minister. And the book was completely against me. You see, it comes from the church part, the attacks. And in Switzerland, nothing happened. In Switzerland, there is a big newspaper. It's a boulevard newspaper, you know, Kauler, daily, very high edition. And for this Swiss newspaper, I write every 2 weeks a column, Extraterrestrials by Erich von Daniken. And this is, they love it. And they do not change a word of it, what I write. I always can publish what I wish. In Germany too, when I have speeches in Germany, German is my mother language. They are much easier than what they do in English here. By the way, my second language is French. So I would rather have given this speak in French. Je parle français comme l'allemand. I made my schools in French. So English is my third language, so I still have problems. But there I have full crowd in Czechia, Slovakia, Germany. When I have a public speech, it's always 700, 800,000 people. And by the way, I just made an arrangement here. Wie heißt die Fernsehstation? You know that Gaia television channel? You know, he has a tent here, Gaia. And we had a good meeting together. And beginning at the end of August, beginning of September, I will give a television series there. I will make the text. I will moderate on screen. So we start with 15 parts of 30 minutes. So this will create a storm here. Life continues. Should I tell you now? Okay, come on. Here.
Oh, well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
We lived in Peru about, what, 40 years ago?
Yeah, you like that? Yeah.
And I was wondering, did you write your book and live there at the same time? Chariots of God, did you write that in Peru or?
No, not in Peru. I wrote it in Switzerland. But I was, of course, before I made Chariots of the God. Of course, I wrote Chariots of the Gods in Switzerland, where I live. I'm Swiss. But before I wrote Chariots of the God, I was, of course, many times in Peru, including Nazca, before writing the book. Naturally. There's a lady down there, he said, okay.
Is there anything special ufology about Machu Picchu?
No. Machu Picchu is much older than archaeology says. In Machu Picchu, you have been there, I think? Nope. Machu Picchu is in Peru. You fly with your aircraft to Cusco, and from Cusco you take a train to Machu Picchu. This train, in the meantime, is a luxury train. Some years ago, it was a catastrophe. It was just you were sitting near animals, dogs and chickens and whatever. In the meantime, it's a luxury train, made for tourists. So from Cusco, you fly from here to Cusco, Lima, Cusco, train to Machu Picchu. You can do this in one day. See, Machu Picchu is a fantastic fortress of the Inca. And you see the typical Inca wall you can recognize because their stones have the form of a trapezoid. So. But it's all standing on gigantic megalithic blocks from an older civilization. So Machu Picchu was older than the Inca time. The Inca just put their stones on the stone blocks of an older civilization. You should go there. Machu Picchu is very impressive. Someone else? Yes.
Eric, is there any other places in Egypt that you know of that you want to get into that you have not been able to yet, or that they're hiding from you, or anything?
They are hiding a lot of things for the tourists, for the normal tourists. But I was always there where I wanted, but just because I paid. I always paid bakshish, you know, The high professors, they always say, well, I'm a poor man, I have family, I have 4 children, 3 dogs, and so, and I normally start with $100, but that's not enough. Sometimes you end with $1,000, but I was there wherever I wished, simply because I paid. It's not honest, but it's the only way you can do it. No, I had no secrets in Egypt. Listen, yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Eric, who is the most interesting person you've ever met, and why?
Oh God, I know so many interesting persons. Wer ist die interessanteste Person, die ich hier getroffen habe? Ramon there, he's my secretary. He works for me since 10 years. He looks very young, but he's 33 years old in the meantime. Now, the most interesting person I met, Werner von Braun, you know, the man who made Saturn V, and I was very impressed by him. He was Werner von Braun, you know, the man who made the rocket Saturn V to the moon. The Germans now later became American. I was very impressed about him. All true, I learned this later. In the Second World War, he belonged to the Nazis. Yes, but he was brilliant as an engineer, as a calculator, and he was very honest, so I admired him. Listen, I have to stop here because I have a flight from Los Angeles in the evening. But wait. Yes, I want to tell you just at the end a joke. It's a joke, okay? So, imagine there is on television a quiz. You know, two parties are fighting against each other. There were 2 men. One of the men was a priest, and the other man was a travel agent. And after 10 minutes, the quiz master said to them, oh, come on, you both have the same amount of point. Now I ask everyone the same question, and the public should decide by applause which answer is the better one. Okay, here is the question to both of you. Each of you make a short poem, not longer than 4 lines, but the last word of the poem has to be Timbuktu. Timbuktu is a city in Africa, in Mali. So the preacher starts and said, I was a preacher all my life. I had no children, had no wife. I read the Bible true and true, all on my way to Timbuktu. Okay, not bad, public applauded. Then came the travel man and said, when Jim and I to Hamburg in Germany went, there were some ladies, cheap to rent. They were 3 and we were 2. So I booked one and Tim booked 2. Goodbye, we see us again maybe next year. Thank you for coming here. It was a pleasure to know each other. Bye-bye.